Hi, I'm John, and today I'm going to be talking about being on Linux Mint for the last 4 years. And I say Linux Mint, Linux in general, but Linux Mint mostly for the past 4 years. I did a little bit of distro hopping, and that's always kind of fun to try different distributions and see what you like. And I keep coming back to Linux Mint as the easiest thing to use for everyday use, that type of thing, especially if you're coming from Windows like I did, going to Linux. So it's been an interesting time. You know, you start out and you don't really know too much, and you get an idea that it's just much less intrusive to your computing life than something like Windows is. You know, I was watching, of all things, QVC the other day, and they were doing this. They were, hawking different computers and, whatever. They're a good company and you can buy from them if you want. I don't buy from QVC or anything. But one of the things I like about QVC is that I can watch something on there and I like a good pitch. I like a good sales pitch. Uh, and they're really good at it. And their people are, very convincing. But one of the things I like, especially about QVC, is that there's no commercials because the whole thing is a commercial. So that really is really something I like. I like the fact that there's no commercials and my expectation is very low. And sometimes I'll look at things and say, well, that's an idea or that's an idea. Like I say, I really don't buy from them. Although I think my wife has, and you see something you like, and it's all right. But what they always do is they have electronics and things like that amongst many other things that they sell. But in this case, it's HP computers, and one of the things that you see on here, and I'm going to pause this real quick. Here's what they will say. You get the computer with a Ryzen 5, 1 TB. That's all good and fine. 16 gigs of RAM. But they'll have the extras in here, like HP Smart Friend Complete. So you can call up somebody if you get really confused. They call that a $300 value. I'm not sure that that's really worth anything. Considering the internet, you probably can get an answer that you need. Accidental damage protection, 1 year. Well, pretty much everybody has a 1 year warranty. Here's the one that I don't really like, which is Microsoft 365 Personal 1 year. You get the first year free. And then after that, you have to pay. And every one of us who has left Microsoft and gone to Linux knows that there are several Office options that work just fine. You can pull in anything really from Microsoft Excel or Word into like LibreOffice, and it's great. And you don't have to be plugged into this Microsoft sphere. And I think when I see people that are hawking this stuff, that are saying, okay, this is the way to go. You get your, they don't even tell you what the operating system is. They just assume that that it's Windows. And of course they tell you what the operating system is. But what they don't tell you is that you do have a choice. You don't have to use Microsoft products. And I think that's the thing that I hate the most about computers these days. I was seeing Tom at Switch to Linux. He had mentioned that Dell actually does do a Linux desktop that is pre-installed in some of their computers they sell, but it's not particularly popular necessarily. I imagine some people buy it, but if you're a Linux person, you're probably distro hopping some anyway. But you'll get people talking about all sorts of things. And if you go to like a Best Buy or something like that, an electronics store, you will see people that the assumption is always, well, you're going to be using Windows on this. And, they'll tell you all about, like I've stood in front of people and they'll say, oh, yeah, it'll run Windows 11 just fine, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I'm not going to use Windows 11. I haven't used Windows 10 in a very long time now. And now that Microsoft is cutting support that is free or anything like that for Windows 10, a lot of people are being left in the lurch. All the different things that they're offering for free, they talk about, like in this presentation, they're talking about software that you get as an add-on that's, given to you for free. It's all Microsoft product and it's Windows based. But you can get everything as far as software goes for whatever you may need to do without having to use a Microsoft product. And that's the bottom line. And this is the kind of thing, just drives me crazy that, there's no discussion when people are selling a product, that there might be alternatives to Microsoft. And there certainly is. And especially when it comes to things like Office and things like that, you definitely don't need it. Now, there are cases where you run into something where you have to use some of their product. If it's in a business situation and the software is written for Windows, that type of thing, I get that. But, when you're buying a new computer, number one, I think you can go out and cut a better deal than what you ever see on TV. I mean, this is not a good way to buy a computer, in my opinion. I think you've got to go see it. You've got to look at that screen to really see if it's going to be suitable for you, if it's bright enough, that type of thing. But, I also like to have the choice. And I made my choice 4 years ago and went to Linux. And I did that, of course, as I've said before in some of my previous videos, when I had a Raspberry Pi and I went just trying it out for the first time, just for the fun of it. And I realized that Linux had matured and I went, okay, I don't need to use Windows. And it opened up a whole new world. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are like me that had the same experience. But if you're buying new hardware, you don't need hardware that is totally top of the line. You don't need the latest and greatest to operate Linux. So if that's the case, you can spend less money and you wouldn't even have to spend what they're offering here. I already know that I looked this up and I saw other brands that were cheaper. Maybe you like HP, maybe you don't. Doesn't matter. My point is that you don't have to be stuck in the Microsoft sphere of things, and you can have software freedom with Linux. And really, it's not difficult to install or anything like that. So it's interesting. After being 4 years of distro hopping, I did a lot of that. And you have to try different things out. And distro hopping is actually fun because you get to see somebody else's take on an operating system. Little bit different, not all the same. Linux has all sorts of different flavors, all sorts of different distributions. So it really is nice to be able to try other people's take on what software should do and function, as simple as that. It's much more fun. With something like this, where you buy a computer and the assumption is, oh, it's Microsoft, 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 and oh, aren't they great? No, you don't get any choices. You get one operating system, you get one shot at it. And what you come to find out is that, like for me, Linux Mint just seems to work the best for me. But it's all about your own personal preference. There's some people, like my son, likes CachyOS because he's into gaming and things like that. that becomes an issue. But then there's all sorts of other people that like different desktops. You get all sorts of choices. And a lot of times you'll come across distributions in Linux that get that right combination that's just right. I mean, there's some things about Linux Mint Cinnamon that I would rather do differently. I wish it was a little bit different, but it's not. And so that's the way it is. But it's nice to be able to have choices, and everybody's a little bit different. So there's probably a flavor of Linux out there for you. I mean, I think on DistroWatch, I think there's something like 200 different ones listed, and I think there's more than that. But don't let that confuse you if you're a new user. You can use something like Mint, Ubuntu, Pop! OS, just any number, MX Linux. These are some of the top ones. And, a little bit simpler, Kubuntu too. I use Kubuntu also. But you will find over time that you'll have certain ones that seem to work best for your computing situation. And being 4 years into it, you really start to understand kind of what it's all about. I mean, I think you do after a year, where you really start hopping and doing different things, and you go, okay, that's what this is about. That's what this is about. And it all depends on, what you want. And it's a freedom of choice thing. So it's been 4 years of freedom of choice, doing whatever it is I want to do. And one of the things I do is that I keep all my important documents on a removable drive, that type of thing. So I can, at any time, distro hop like I like to do. I was just doing it last weekend or the weekend before, not this last weekend before. And I was doing an incredible amount of distro hopping. I was just trying all sorts of different things. And you know what? You find certain things that you go, yeah, I could live with this. This would be fine. But then for me, I always come back to Mint just because I got used to it, I think, more than anything else. But at least I'm away from Microsoft. I'm away from all their thing. And when you see things like computers that are for sale, they're always pushing Microsoft, and it's just never questioned. But I would encourage you, if you haven't ever gotten away from Windows or tried Linux, give it a try, and you'll really like it. If you're have any kind of computing skills and understanding of what a computer really is as far as an operating system goes, you'll be just fine. And you'll find that very shortly, like for me, it was a matter of a week or less, and I changed all my computers over to Linux. That was the end of it with Microsoft. Never looked back, and you didn't need to buy computers that were so powerful, because the reason why they're selling these computers that have way more power than what a computer really needs for most people's applications is not because of the applications, it's because of the operating system. The operating system is too bulky. It's too, I'm talking about Windows. It's too bulky. It's not really friendly. It's bloaty. What other adjectives could I use? It's not good for just the average computer user. So instead of buying a computer for $700, like what they're asking you here, you can probably buy it for half the price and just put Linux on it. What does bother me is when I went to shop for a laptop, I got a pretty good deal on a laptop, but I didn't even, not for 1 second, did I even go through the Windows startup. I immediately put in a USB with Linux Mint on it and installed it on there, and that was that. I wasn't going to even try anything, because why would I? I don't want them looking over my shoulder. I don't want their co-pilot. I don't want all their bloatware, all those things. So there it is. I've talked about it, and this isn't the first time I've talked about it, but I just wanted to kind of ramble on about it. And you see these things, and if you want to buy a computer from QVC, you can go ahead. I personally wouldn't buy one from them, but evidently in this presentation, I watched some of it, and it said that they had sold 12,000 of these. But I think a lot of people that are newbies to computing, or if they're maybe elderly, that type of thing, I think they have no choice. You do have a choice. But the thing that bothers me most, like getting back to that laptop that I bought, I still had to, within the price of the computer, I still had to pay a Windows license. Somewhere buried in there, in that cost, is a Windows license. And it bothers me that I have to spend that instead of just buying something outright. That's maybe why I should buy a Dell. I wish they'd just sell computers with no operating system on it at all. And then you could just choose what you wanted to do. You could say, well, give me the USB with Windows on it. Give me the USB with Linux on it. Give me the USB with this on it. Whatever. And then people could go through it and install. But they don't. They have it pre-done, and then you're paying for it. You're paying for everything that is Microsoft on this computer. In fact, I would bet that the licensing is, some of the really prohibitive cost when it comes to new computers and things like that. So anyway, that's that. I'll be talking more about some other things. I had not done anything in a while, and I've been doing some distro hopping, and there's some really good things out there. But once again, as long as it isn't Windows, I'm happy. I just don't want anything like that. So anyway, that's it. I hope you have a great day, and thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.